Too often, I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. Again, barefaced lies. Too often, I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. Again.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. You can put one where it's all gonna end, yeah. You can feel me, we never wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced lies.
Barefaced lies. Barefaced lies.
Hey Sean, you got a party? You got that little party going on there. Keep to the left, you can't play right, so everything you do goes wrong, yeah. Incompetence just leads to disaster. Corruption brings it on even faster. What you say?
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you want where it's all gonna end, yeah. If you give me, we never wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shit cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you want where it's all gonna end, yeah. If you give me, we never wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shit cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced lies.
Barefaced lies.
Comrades, you always told us you'd build us all a new Jerusalem, yeah. You talk the talk, but when you walk, you only leave a crooked line there. And you don't see the trouble that's brewing if all you do is just what you're doing.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you want where it's all gonna end, yeah. Do you feel me, we never wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shit cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced lies.
Is this where you wanna be? Debt and childhood poverty. Want somebody set us free from this corrupt kleptocracy. Oh yeah.
Barefaced lies.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you want where it's all gonna end, yeah. Do you feel me, we never wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shit cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you want where it's all gonna end, yeah. Do you feel me, we never wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shit cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you want where it's all gonna end, yeah. Do you feel me, we never wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shit cold, overgrown, postal road, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you want where it's all gonna end, yeah. Do you feel me, we never wanna defend, yeah.
My brother Jamal. I telling you and I keep telling you, my brother Jamal. What is going to happen to you next, my brother Jamal? Look in Rotherham. Look in Rotherham what they're doing to you Labour Party politicians in Rotherham, my brother Jamal. Even with the big Punjabi samosas, no, in Rotherham, no. My brother Jamal, time is ticking.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011, he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.
A very, very, very good evening, Sunday the 8th of October 2023. Another month closer to Christmas. And we are still here. For those of you who are new to me, that wasn't my accent, although I can claim it as a cultural... I don't know. I can claim it. So before someone wants to claim I'm being racist by mocking myself and my own... No, nah. My name is Raja Mia. These are Recusant 9 transmissions. Hated by those in the Labour Party, and according to our big team independent friends, nobody knows me, nobody follows me. Well, hello to you too. A very, very good evening to you too. Nikki, if you worked with someone who talked exactly like that, please put me in touch with them so I can practice my accent and refine it, because most of my uncles and so on who spoke in that accent are long gone. So we now, my friends and I now usually use it to mock ourselves rather than anything else. Last week, I think it was something in the region of, 10,000 or so people in the end who over the course of the week viewed the transmissions on YouTube. So I'm finding it yeah, we're still going, aren't we? People are just as much interested, if not more so interested than they ever were before. Now, before I start, I have a request for a lot of you. I have sent so many of you an invite on Facebook from both the Raja Mir for MP page and the Recusant 9 page, asking you to like it, share it, follow it, whatever it is that you're meant to do on Facebook. You've been invited. And many of you here, I can see your names now on the right, you've not accepted my invitations. Now, unfortunately, the reality is, if we're going to win this, then you need to follow the pages, you need to share the posts, because we don't have the machinery of Oldham Council. We don't have £100,000 plus of council tax money to put newsletters through everyone's letterboxes. We don't have the adverts that the I Love Oldham page can put out. We don't have the Oldham Times. We don't have the Oldham Chronicle, the Manchester Evening News. All we've got is ourselves. So please, if you can, and there's no reason why you can't, the Recusant 9 Facebook page, you need to like it. The Raja Mir for MP page, you need to like it. And if you're yet to do so, you need to follow the followers on YouTube. All of that costs you absolutely nothing. It costs you absolutely nothing, but it means that when I put a post up, more people are likely to see it. And bear in mind, the context of all of this, we're still here despite attempts over a number of years, most recently by our independent friends, to censor and defund me and stop people from hearing what I've got to say. Now, I know you're interested because there's already over 100 of you now, and I'm just looking to the screen on my left and I can see how many people are watching. There's already 100 of you who've joined in. So, if you don't follow, if you don't share, if you don't comment, we're going to lose. Whichever independent faction or conservative or opposition faction you support, we're going to lose. And if you think we're going to win this in any way, and winning means moving in the first instance this council into no overall control, if you think you're going to win this without me keeping it together, then you're as deluded as that man John Hughes is. 100%. Okay. And of course, these transmissions are free to air. If you're putting up your posts, such as Pauline who's just joined us, you're doing so because you've subscribed. It's 99 pence a month to YouTube. I get back 66 pence of it. And that 66 pence of it I hoard and put together and spend it on a meal or a round of drinks. So this money isn't for me. It is a safeguard to stop some of our opponents from posting and trying to twist the words I say into meaning something else and resulting in the police coming and falsely arresting me again. Remember, let's be very clear here. There's no one else risking their lives the way I am. No one else. No one else risking their home. No one else risking their families, their livelihood. No. So subscribe for the 99 pence. It means I've got a safeguard. I get 66 pence back. It means you can comment and all the money gets put together. And as we did, I think, a couple of weeks ago, as soon as YouTube pay me, once I hit a threshold every few months, we spend the money on a round of drinks or a meal somewhere once every 2 or 3 months. So please, if you're yet to subscribe, do so. Oops, sorry, I've dropped my phone. I'll have to pick that up. And it is money well spent, Paulie. It is money well spent. Remember, all of my content is shared completely for free. Whether it's through the Ghost site, whether it's through Facebook, YouTube, whatever, all of my content is shared absolutely for free. And despite the attempts, you know exactly who you are. Councillor Maggie Hurley, Councillor Mark Hince, Councillor Sandra Ball, and your big teams. Despite your attempts to defund me, and you have hurt me, £250 and more I've lost. Well, I lost money when Proud of Oldham decided to do what they did. And what's happened to them? What's happened to them? I saw a post from Sharer Shilton. That'll share later today, this evening. And if you can, this is whilst the broadcasts are taking place or afterwards, this is the Buy Me a Coffee link, and it's entirely up to you. It's entirely up to you. I know, and I shared it this morning, that as things stand, I will run out of money in the near future. It'll become unsustainable. And contrary to the advice of some of you who've been in touch with me, Roger, can't you get a part-time job? Can't you do this? Can't you do that? Two things. One, this currently is more than a full-time job, and that was before I am committing several days a week to posting leaflets on top of everything else. And come on. No one in the right mind, I wouldn't hire me whilst I'm doing political campaigning like this. Can you imagine, even if I went and got a job in my friend's restaurant or takeaway, what would happen to them? What sort of health and safety visits they'd get? No. So, support me or lose me, and I just do the best I can and get to the election, general election, next October, November. That's entirely up to you. Let's move on with this evening's transmission. GB News reported this: Rotherham Labour councillors are facing deselection amid abuse gangs scandal. Let's bring it on. What Charlie Peters had to say.
There is a significant change taking place in the Rotherham Labour group in who will stand in next year's local elections. From my understanding, 2 councillors are being deselected forcefully by Labour HQ in London. That is Dominic Beck, who stood down, as you'll remember, in December as the parliamentary candidate after GB News coverage. He's now, we understand, appealing that decision. And Alan Atkin is also being stood down. Alan Atkin was in the infamous 2005 seminar that we reported on and other outlets have reported on earlier in the coverage of the town's abuse scandal, where they were told, it said in explicit detail, about what was going on in the town. 30 councillors were there, of which 4 are still on the council.
Yeah, OK. And so are they being deselected as a result of, you know, how kind of close they were to things there, or is it just time to move on? What's the thing there?
Well, there's been an awful lot of furore over the fact that they attended this seminar in 2005, and it's alleged that they, you know, did not do anything. The 2014 Alexis J report into the scandal in Rotherham alleged that many of these councillors were in this meeting, didn't do anything. At the time, the councillors said they didn't act because the police said it would interrupt their operations. However, GB News last year, at the beginning of this year, investigated that claim and took a look and found that there was no police operation until 2008, 3 years later. And so the claim that they were being told they couldn't intervene was unlikely to be supported by what we knew the police were doing. So when we asked many of these councillors, why didn't you speak up? Most of them ignored the question. But Alan Atkin went so far as to say that he was just getting on with his life. I was just getting on with things. I think it's likely that that statement, which we reported in February, has contributed to the Labour NEC intervening here and stepping him down, especially after the controversy surrounding Dominic Beck, the parliamentary candidate who stood down after GB News coverage.
Yeah, I mean, so I think it's possibly worth reminding our viewers and our listeners exactly what went on in Rotherham as well when it comes to the grooming gang situation. I mean, it was an absolutely horrific incident, wasn't it?
That's right. So from 1997 to 2013, independent reports commissioned by the government found that well over 1,400 young girls and some boys have been abused and sexually exploited by predominantly Pakistani gangs. A future estimate by the National Crime Agency has actually revised that number up to 1,510. Investigations are still ongoing. It is, as we know, a live issue. And many survivors in the town feel as though that true accountability hasn't yet been achieved.
Yeah.
Some I spoke to last night when we were breaking this news about 6 councillors either voluntarily standing down or being stood down.
Yeah.
They are saying that finally this is another step forward in the right direction.
Okay, so in Oldham, so we are very, very clear, in Oldham, what took place in Oldham is that the politicians didn't do anything, they did something. They actively worked to keep this news hidden. It is now proven. They kept it hidden from the public, and they went one step further. Have a look at the Guardian article after the Guardian, the left-wing Guardian article after the assurance review came out. Let me just try and just bring it up. Just give me 1 second. Here, this isn't me. I wanted to bring it up so you can see it. In Rotherham, Labour Party politicians are being deselected, removed, because Starmer needs to distance himself in the lead up to the general election. I can't see no other reason why it's now taking place. Because they did nothing. Or, as the case of one of the councillors, he was just getting on with his life. As in, he didn't think it important. Here is what they did in Oldham. That's the headline. This article may be more than 1 year old, which is what they do to try and hide or downplay. This is the report. This is the byline. Report singles out failings by police and council and suggests senior officials may have misled MPs. Senior officials may have misled MPs. That's exactly what took place in Oldham. And the senior officials at the time could only have been the chief executive and the leader of Oldham Council. Now it's MP James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon. Because the MP, the Home Affairs Select Committee, are the MPs in question. One of the most powerful cross-party groups in this country, in Parliament, the Home Affairs Select Committee, is what may have been misled. And the only people capable of doing the misleading, because these are the only people who would have been able, that the Home Affairs Select Committee would have written to and responded likewise, is the leader of Oldham Council at the time, which was James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon. Now put that into context. In Rotherham, they're being removed because they didn't do anything, yet in Oldham, they did something. They actively covered it up in the town, and then when the Home Affairs Select Committee got in touch with them, the Guardian itself is reporting that senior officials may have misled. And I'm going to find it. I'm going to find the specific section. First of all, the report. Remember, there was no cover-up. There was no cover-up, is what they kept saying. Yet the report shows it criticised Greater Manchester Police for a less than candid approach to MPs and said both agencies being the police and the council, responded to the victims' concerns, feed a view that they were more concerned about covering up for their failures than acknowledging the harm that had been done to a vulnerable young person. Less than candid is translated to lied. I can see no other translation. Misled? You can say misled if you want, but I believe it's more so. Yet it goes on to say, the authors, the child protection specialists, they need to keep reminding us they were specialists, Newsman and Ridgway, found there was no evidence to suggest Oldham Council sought to cover up child sex exploitation. There was plenty of evidence. And if Ridgway and Newsom are sticking by that, then Ridgway and Newsom are both liars. It concluded that there were historic failings. Well, seeing as though you were looking into historic cases rather than current day cases, you found failings. And it reports that the Rochdale grooming gang ringleader Shabir Ahmed worked for the council as a welfare rights officer for 18 years. Remember, in all of the publicity you read, it was seen as though it's some form of taxi ring involved. Well, no. He worked for the council. And they reckon until 2006, my information is he worked within the council for longer, or he was involved with the council or the mechanics of the council for longer. Ignores that he was a Labour Party member and fails to have questioned any of the other Asian councillors who were around at the time. And I'll just pick two names. I think these two names are important. Abdul Jabbar and Fida Hussain. as to whether or not they knew Shabir Ahmed. Fida Hussein is now a senior member of Arooj Shah's inner circle and cabinet member, despite him being arrested and questioned, not charged or prosecuted. He'll have to work out what happened there. I don't know what happened there, but arrested over money laundering allegations. I think he's now Arooj Shah's business czar. Abdul Jabbar, Jim McMahon's right-hand man. Arooj Shah demoted him recently, but until this year, he was the deputy leader and had been the deputy leader for over a decade. Indeed, Hariji, welfare officer for 18 years, head scout. The review concluded there was no widespread child sexual exploitation. In Rotherham, we've got a figure of 1,510. In Oldham, whilst they say no widespread to this day, the council refused to give us a figure. This is a cover-up, and my position is clear. We need to campaign for a public inquiry. We need to continue campaigning for a public inquiry. And what happened in Rotherham and how these people are being made to pay is less of a scandal than what has happened in Oldham. Because in Oldham, the cover-up and the layer and layer cover-up goes from the council to the MPs to the police, all the way to Andy Burnham, who commissioned this assurance review, the so-called King of the North. All of them are complicit. And sooner or later, we will get our public inquiry, because we have a right to know, and all of these people need to be held accountable. And the reason why I'm continuously being dragged through the courts isn't because I'm a racist, isn't because I'm divisive, it is because I am relentless. And I have, an ability to stay focused. I think the Chief Executive Officer, Caroline Wilkins, went for this very reason, Denise, as did her entire leadership team. I think at the time she was Deputy Chief Executive and had just become Chief Executive. The report describes how a Rochdale grooming ringleader, Shabir Ahmed, worked for Oldham Council as a welfare rights officer for 18 years until 2006, about a year after he was accused of child sexual abuse. Are you to believe the council didn't know? Are you to believe that the cases mysteriously disappeared? Accidentally? I have no doubt on my position. This man was protected for as long as they could protect him. And even after that, there was a reference provided to him. I do not accept the explanation by the deputy, at the time deputy leader and senior councillor, whose responsibility includes our finances. I do not accept the explanation from Abdul Jabbar that he cannot recall whether he gave Shabir Ahmed a reference. Carl Marsden, head of communications, celebrated Warren. Carl Marsden then went to work for Oldham College. His wife worked at the Oldham Chronicle to help cover this up. His wife now works for Angela Rayner. Can you see? Can you see why what happened in Oldham is worse? The authors found cases of taxi drivers who had been allowed to keep their jobs despite being convicted or accused of sexual offences. Well, who allowed them to keep the jobs? Who allowed them to keep their jobs? Was it the councillors on the licensing committees? Or was it the council officers? And this is just one recorded offence because we know it's underreported. In one case, a driver who had been convicted of sexual offences went on to commit a further offence on a young passenger in 2015. How old was that young passenger? And whilst the Labour Party are trying to distance themselves from what happened in Rotherham, look what they've done with what happened in Oldham. Amanda Chadderton has been elected onto the Labour Northwest Regional Executive. We chased her out of Oldham because of her role in the cover-up, including blocking calls for a public inquiry and standing up and daring to claim we can't say it destroyed their lives. Thrilled to have been elected onto Labour Northwest Regional Executive. Huge year ahead as the Tories scrap HS2 and replace with money to fix potholes. Power shouldn't be a race to the bottom. I agree, Amanda. Just as I'm sure you need to hold your hand up and accept that power should also not be exchanged for the screams of little girls. Oh, so Dawn Marsden, that's it. Warren is the fountain of knowledge on all of these issues. She went on to work for James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon, but I'm sure if you type in her name, Warren, you'll find that there is a connection with her and Angela Rayner. In fact, I'll do it for you right now. Angela Rayner gave her speech today at the Labour Party conference. This is Dawn Marsden. She's the communications officer for the Right Honourable Angela Rayner. See? Do you see that? And Mr. Marsden, last I heard, held a senior role at Oldham College. Remember, he celebrated the result of keeping the story that would have warned you, me and everyone else of what was going on, how our children were at risk of killing the story. They celebrated it. How can these people continue to hold positions of power and influence and earn money from the public purse? I've maintained from the outset that what happened in Rotherham not only happened in Oldham, but what happened in Oldham was worse. The cover-up was worse because there are senior Labour Party politicians complicit at various stages in what took place in Oldham. So that's what's happened in Rotherham. And I'm hoping there will come a day when on the national news it is reported how Arud Shah, Jim McMahon, Sean Fielding, Amanda Chadderton, Abdul Jabbar, Fida Hussein, Ross Birch, Elaine Taylor, Mohan Ali, Nazrul Islam, Naila Ibrahim, Peter Dean are all forced to stand down. Actually, I want more than that. I want criminal investigations against this council and every councillor involved. Thank you for those of you who are joining me this evening. My name is Raj Amir. Despite attempts to defund and censor me by the very independents that we elected, we supported, we campaigned for, I am still here and I will remain here for as long as possible. And how long I remain here is entirely, well, it's in your hands. The police have tried to get rid of me. The council's lawyers, by the way, have written back to me again, so I'll share that with you later on this evening. Let's move on. If you're finding value, please press like at the very least. There's 168 of you with me right now. The Oldham Chief Executive Officer is to stay put after search for successor fails. All of you saw me share this and provide my analysis of this. It demonstrates that the civil service, the senior civil service, have, it's a vote of no confidence in Arooj Shah, her leadership and the administration of this town, because no one wants to come to Oldham and have their career destroyed. I'd urged the independents to issue a statement. They've refused point blank, raising concerns. The reason they've refused now, I think, has got to do a lot to do with how they now received £1,000 or more every month from Oldham Council as elected members. I genuinely believe that's the case, because I am certain that had this been before any of them had been elected, they would share their outrage on their social media pages. You'd have Maggie Hurley and Mark Ince both putting a video out saying how this council had failed to recruit a chief executive and how alarming it was. Furthermore, I am sure that they would also have questioned the legality of Arooj Shah's statement that instead of advertising again or working out how best to move this forward, she has decided on a strategy that is the legality of which is dubious. And I'm sure if one of the opposition councillors brought it up and fought it, it would end there. What they're trying to do is grow their own. Apparently, over the course of the next 2 years, where they've convinced Harry Caffrell to come out of retirement, by the way, for 2 days, is my information, or just over 2 days. So you've got a chief executive who's retired, who's come out of retirement for just over 2 days. How much salary they're keeping quiet, I don't think it's pro rata from what he was on. I think the package is far more enhanced. They've brought him back for 2 days a week. During that time, they're going to grow their own. Now, my position on why they are growing their own is so they can try and continue to cover up what has taken place in this town. Well, Warren, I'm happy to inform the staff of Oldham Council, many of whom who listen to these transmissions. I'm happy to inform them of what has taken place. Sorry, Warren, I just don't like how that is there, so let me just make that a bit bigger. I'm happy to confirm what exactly has taken place. Harry Caffrell is on 2 days, 2 and a bit days. It's unknown yet how many of those days are actually spent in Oldham, in an office. What I do know of the two that they are growing their own, there are two candidates. One is Saeed Osman, who was brought in by Harry Caffrell as his number two. He followed Caffrell, and Caffrell created a job for him. I have no issue with that, as I've shared previously. And contrary to what has been claimed in certain quarters, I have no interest in Saeed Osman getting the job or not getting the job if he got it in an open, transparent process. Neither his ethnicity or his religion has any bearing on me whatsoever. If you're good enough, you're good enough. If it was done properly. But it hasn't been, has it? You're trying to ring fence it for him in a couple of years. It doesn't work like that. But my information is that Saeed Osman is not the preferred choice of Arooj Shah. Arooj Shah would prefer the second candidate, who they've now promoted, internally promoted, without any interview, without any, external interview or anything like that. They've internally promoted Emma Barton. So you're now paying Emma Barton tens of £1,000s more to be the joint deputy chief executive. And over the next 2 years, it's between Emma Barton and Saeed Osman. If I was Saeed Osman, I'd leave and want nothing to do with it. Of course, Emma Barton arrived in Oldham under a cloud from serious issues, project failures in Wigan. Remember the redevelopment of Wigan Town Centre and all of what she was involved in now? Well, that's Emma Barton, and Emma Barton, along with Elizabeth Drogan, have been front and centre in attempting to censor and silence people in the council chambers. So she is clearly being rewarded, or attempted to be rewarded, for how she has attacked people like you and instrumental in falsely issuing fake ASBOs and all of that sort of stuff. So Emma Barton is the second internal candidate, and she's also been promoted to the position of deputy. For how much more money, I don't know. But what I will share with you, and I've shared with you from the beginning, is that what is going on is atrocious, it's unacceptable. It would not be accepted anywhere else. It wouldn't be accepted in Manchester, it wouldn't be accepted in Rochdale, it wouldn't be accepted in Leeds, Liverpool. None of the local authorities that I've ever been anywhere near would accept a situation such as what Arud Shah is trying to force through in Oldham. Harry Caffrell's not going to say anything because he's going to get paid for 2 days a week, 2.5 days a week. Whilst, we're from Marbella. Costa del Sol, fly in once a week, fly in once a month, I don't know. What I do know is that the Royton independents, the Shaw independents, the Failsworth independents, whichever faction, and the Liberal Democrats have all displayed an unprecedented level of cowardice, as have most of the Conservatives. The only one that's spoken out are the Oldham Conservatives, which is Lewis Quigg, Dave Arnott, and his wife Christine. Those are the only people who've spoken out against what is taking place here. And I maintain, as someone who's worked in and around local authorities for decades, what is being attempted in Oldham is unlawful. You cannot ring fence a job like this. It's a chief executive position. You've got to go out and recruit the best. And if you can't recruit the best, you've got to ask yourself why. And I'm clear. Who in the right mind would want to come and work for an individual with the criminal connections that Arud Shah has, or in a council embroiled in the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of its children? If you're finding value in these transmissions, please press like, please press share. Please, if you can, consider buying me a coffee, and I will move on to the next item I want to discuss with you. I wanted to talk about this last week, but I ran out of time. Oldham Council, at the request of Arud Shah, lit up the Civic Centre green on the Prophet's birthday. Now, let me first of all share you some of my historical understanding, some of the learnings I have around the Prophet's birthday. Remember, I am a Muslim. Contrary to what they've claimed, I am a Muslim, and I make no secret of that. I was never raised, I went to the mosque the same as all of my friends. We were never raised to celebrate the Prophet's birthday. In fact, we were never raised to celebrate any birthdays. It wasn't something that was Islamically done in that way. Not in the school of thought we were raised in. And lighting up the Civic Centre green for the birthday by Arud Shah, where she then rocks up with her mates with a block vote contingent. You can see there. To have a photograph taken, I think is divisive and should have been called out. Should have been called out. Here they are. There's Councillor Shahid Mushtaq alongside her and a Glodic contingent. And a traffic cone. Oldham Council confirmed that the request, apparently it was a request, the request came from the leader and it didn't need to be formally authorised. So it was informally authorised, was it? Following the leader's request, the head of communications then asked her team to arrange the lighting with one of our suppliers. The cost was £1,069 for the lighting and equipment and another £100 or so. Why can't you give an exact figure? How can it be £100 or so? Remember the old saying, look after the pennies and the pounds will look after themselves? Well, why is it £100 or so? Or was it £90, £95, £100, £150? On top for the photographer last night. That's what the photographs the photographer took, I presume. You can see the lights in the background, not quite good. That picture there with a car in front. And that picture there. £100 or more for the photographer. If you still want to log this as a formal FOI, you don't need an FOI. What you need is to be outraged and your councillors to be outraged, but they won't be outraged because they're now comfortably in power. Denise asks a very valid question. Why wasn't it lit up for the young police officer's anniversary? And whoever this idiot is that runs the Oldham Council page, they're an idiot. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. So this is the official Oldham Council page saying thank you for bringing this to our attention. Are they claiming? Is Oldham Council claiming that they were unaware of Nicola Hughes being butchered by Dale Cregan and that she was a police officer from Oldham? Is Oldham Council now claiming they are unaware of that? They must be unaware of the role of Arooj Shah's childhood friend, Irish Shimmy, who was convicted in the dock alongside Dale Cregan as his getaway driver. They must also be completely unaware of how Dale Cregan's grenades were found in a drain pipe in Glodic, a predominantly Pakistani area that Dale Cregan would have no direct connection with. So Oldham Council are claiming that they are unaware. Furthermore, Oldham Council put up, and my friend Eva Lowe, Jewish, and whatever's going on in Israel and Palestine right now, I look at it and I feel nothing but sorrow. And I'm appalled. Like every human being, I think. Eva Lowe asked, it was Yom Kippur a few days earlier, one of the most significant Jewish festivals. The council did not light anything up for a Jewish festival in this town. They put up a post trying to say they made reference to it in a Facebook post. So it's okay. And the reference they'd made in a Facebook post was from the year previous or the year previous to that. So this request has to go for review, but if you have a hotline to the leader, certain communities can just bypass the list for consideration. I thought it was just someone trying to stir community divisions when they said they'd personally asked the leader. Seems not. Okay. If it's not caused community division, what has lighting up the Civic Centre green? And the symbolism of the colour green, Gary, It's just that the green colour is the Islamic colour. You'll see green. So I think that's where the green comes from. There's nothing beyond that. Go and speak to any of the clerics, any of the imams in the mosques, and they will share with you that Muslims themselves are divided. Because we don't, or we're not meant to go into this sort of form of ostentatious celebrations. That's what I was taught. And yet here, if it had been structured in terms of, okay, we celebrate this, we celebrate that, we celebrate something else, we calendar it out, I think it's not the best use of money per se. £1,000 a time to light something up when our children are going hungry, according to these people. I'd rather see £1,000 go to the Glodick Girls Football Club or the cricket team. Personally, if it's public money, I think this form of identity politics and gestures are it's just fakery. I don't think it makes any difference. But this was divisive. And the leader was involved. And it was just bypassed. No one had to formally approve it. Of course you had to formally approve it. Someone had to formally approve it. You can't informally say, okay, we'll spend £1,000 or £1,500. Someone's got to sign a form somewhere. Of course you've got to formally approve it. And of course these people knew when Yom Kippur was. Of course these people know who the police officers were that were butchered and how one of them was from this town. Of course they do. But they openly mock you. Openly mock you. And treat you like you're fools. And dare you speak out. Well, heaven only knows who'll pay you a visit. Moving on to something, I'm trying to break it up with something a bit silly. Oldham Council have spat the dummy out. Our Name the Gritter competition is for school children, not 40-odd-year-old comics who think they have come up with a funny name. Believe me, we've heard them all before and they were boring the first time round. They're not happy. Well, actually, if you look at some of the names that they've been called in the past, it weren't from school children either, was it? What they don't like is people now mocking the council. Of course, I'd call it Aruji's Snowflakes or Imi's White Powder. That's what I'd call it. Imi's White Powder. But they are now issuing stroppy statements on Facebook. They've lost all control. This council has lost all control. And no amount of censorship or screaming racism will stop what's happening now. The only way we will get control back in this town is for the government to come in and take over the running of this council. We can't recruit a chief executive. The deputies we're recruiting, well, they're questionable in their calibre. And even the police officer has disappeared and no one says why he's gone. Apparently, it's process, I was told. The most senior officer in the town at that level doesn't go to take a desk job. I want to move on and pick up on this. We talked about it last week. Excuse me, I've got an itch. We talked about this last week, and I've just used the same post from Sandra Ball, Failsworth West. Those of you who joined me last week will have laughed your head off, as whilst I questioned the legality and the absence of transparency of how the Royton Independents and Hince's Shaw and Crompton Independents were masquerading as political parties or some form of community groups with members, and I exposed them for what they were, which is a cabal, a secret group of people pretending to have a public face to them, but they did not, because there was no membership forms. And I demonstrated it by going on to Shaw and Crompton's Independence webpage. That webpage was took down whilst I was ripping it to pieces. And you're all more than capable of working out what took place there. Good evening, Councillor Markins. Just wait. Just wait. I then asked some of you, or all of you, to contact the Shaw and Crompton Independents and ask to join. To contact the Royton Independents and ask to join. Now, I've been told two things have happened. One is those of you who have asked, what's his name? Graham Rowe from the Royton Independents, and I put his webpage up, hasn't got back to you. Well, don't worry. Once this gets closer to an election, watch what we do with the Electoral Commission and how they intervene. So don't worry about that. But the second thing I've had feedback on is, you know, when you're digging a hole or when you're in a hole and you need to stop digging, the feedback I've had back from people is that they are claiming that if they have less than if they have one councillor, they don't need to go through this process. And I'm telling you now, that's an outright lie. A political organisation of any form, whether it's a community group or a political party, has a constitution, and that constitution means people are allowed to join as members. It also means meetings have got to be held and candidates have got to be selected. It does not matter if you have one councillor, 10 councillors or no councillors. You've got to operate through in a democratic manner. And if they're saying that because they've only got one councillor, they don't have to do this, well, I'm telling you now, if they're telling you that, they are lying to you. If they're telling you that, they are lying to you. And I don't know if the web page is back up, Raymond, but what I did find hilarious was that Hince and his mates were taking the web page down at 100 miles an hour. And we know why they were taking it down, because we'd exposed them as a cabal. And the same with the Royton Independents. We exposed them as a cabal. And that they have refused to reply to you, Marlene. And the same with you. Or providing incorrect information or misleading information. No. What do you think the Labour Party is going to do with this? What do you think the Liberal Democrats are going to do with this? Now, I've also had feedback as to why I waited until now to bring this up. There are two reasons. One is I tried to nudge it along, hoping that they'd get round to doing the right thing in terms of the representation, getting the house in order. But the second thing is I didn't know. And I only brought it up when I knew. And this is what I'm referring to. The video of the council meeting, the planning meeting, only went up on the webpage, on the council's webpage last week. Until then, I had no sight of the video. I had no understanding of what had gone on in that planning meeting around Woodhouses. I knew, and I shared it with you on Facebook, go and have a look. I knew that there was a special meeting being convened to approve, to go to Cabinet, who would then rubber stamp it, the formal consultation for Andy Burnham's Places for Everyone, the Greater Manchester Spatial Framework that would build across Oldham's Greenbelt in Chadderton, Royton and Shaw, Failsworth, of which the Woodhouses development was one of them. What I didn't know until the video went up was that how Mark Hince and Brian Hobin had voted on that. And the discussions are on that. And the video doesn't lie, the video's up there. Go and have a look, the video's up there. Now the question, the concerns I had were that these people approved building on the Greenbelt. And they're starting to nitpick as to what that means. But you've seen the Oldham Chronicle headline itself, making reference to building on the Greenbelt. It's not me who's just saying it's building on the Greenbelt. The Chronicle even had a nice photograph of where Failsworth ended and a big patch of green and how a big development is being built on the Greenbelt in Woodhouses. Now let me give you some context, and I'll bring up the Failsworth Independent Statement, and I'll bring up the Mark Hince's extensive ChatGPT assisted, I would imagine, nonsense. Now, Vic and Sue Lund, who are here, I think, one of them asked a question. And the Failsworth Independent's like, this posted about HMOs, blah, blah, blah. With regards to the Woodhouses application, it's for building on a brownfield site within the Greenbelt. So they accept it's within the Greenbelt. There was insufficient reasoning to reject the application, which would have led to an appeal that the applicant would more than likely win, thus allowing the development and also costing the council quite a considerable fee in court and costs. So the Failsworth Independents have suddenly become legal experts. Apparently there was insufficient reasoning to reject the application. They don't specify the insufficient reasoning, but they claim there was insufficient reasoning, and if we had objected, it would have cost the council more money. So we didn't object. That's absolute bollocks. That's Brian Hobin and Lucia Ray talking absolute bullshit. Hazel Gloucester voted against it because of the Lib Dems position, remember. No building on the Greenbelt. And worse, for Hobin and Lucia Ray, is that when they got elected and won in Failsworth East, and Hindle was one of the councillor candidates, the Woodhouses campaign specifically focused on protecting the Greenbelt and no more building on the Greenbelt. And now they're claiming they've made up that there's insufficient reasoning to reject. I will give you one very simple reason to reject. You're building on the Greenbelt, you buffoon. And since when was it the councillor's job to worry if a developer then might take the council to court and win? We're not going to fight because the developer might take us to court. What sort of independent was elected on that position? What sort of independent was elected on that? Exactly, John. That's exactly my point, better put. As well as Brian Hobin and Mark Hince being on the planning committee, I'm pretty sure Hindle is also on the planning committee. Just bear with me. Bear with me whilst I do this. Just give me 1 second. Go and get a drink. Oldham Council Planning Committee. Sorry, just bear with me. Membership of the planning committee is as follows. Councillors Akhtar, Stephen Bashforth. Why am I not surprised Stephen Bashforth's on the planning committee? Councillor Cosgrove, Councillor Davis, Councillor Fryer, Councillor Hazel Gloucester, Councillor Harkness, Councillor Hince, Hobin, Ibrahim, Iqbal, Lancaster, Surjan and Woodvine. There was no need for the Failsworth Independents to vote in support of this application. There was no need. Because this application would have passed anyway. There was no need for Councillor Hobin to be front and centre of supporting this motion, particularly given their position on protecting the Greenbelt. The reasoning does not stack up. The purpose of the opposition is not to worry about the developer might appeal and it'll cost the council money. But they go further than that, and this is Hobin through and through. You know it's Hobin through and through because he thinks he's smart. Planning is a very complex issue and not as simple as you may be led to understand. Bullshit. Absolute nonsense, Hobin. Planning is not a very complex issue. Planning is a straightforward issue. You can object as a councillor, you can vote against it. So he's trying to say, leave it to the experts. The landlord and previous bus driver And taxi driver Brian Hobin is now suddenly an expert. Maybe Lucia Ray, the ice cream salesman, she's an ice cream salesman, I've got nothing against it, has suddenly developed expertise on planning. Planning is a very complex issue and not as simple as you may be led to understand. Sometimes, and this is the bit that's the piss take, sometimes it is important to pick the battles that you can't win and save yourself for others that you can. That's being a responsible representative in council. You absolute pillock. You absolute pillock. How dare you write something like that? Sometimes it is important to pick the battles that you can't win. Building on the Greenbelt should be opposed no matter what. And picking battles that you can't win. Let me turn this around. Let me expand on this. Sometimes it is important to pick the battles. I can't win speaking out against the grooming and gang rape of working class white girls, so maybe I should just wait and pick my battle on something else. No. You speak out on what's right and what's wrong, irrespective of whether you can win it or not, you absolute disgrace. You absolute disgrace. But it gets worse for Hobin, Hindle, who, by the way, isn't turning up to meetings without explanation. So on Oldham Council's own record, you'll see he's not turning up to meetings without explanation. He's not even sending his apologies in. The council has already turned off his emails. His email isn't available on the council webpage last time I looked. He's drawing down over £10,000 a year. The Failsworth Independents have known for a long time that the Woodhouses development, this particular development, is part of Andy Burnham's Places for Everyone, Greater Manchester Spatial Review, whatever it's called. And Hobin, Lucia Ray and Hindle would have known that it was included in the Greater Manchester documents, and it would be in just under 10 days' time be going out to public consultation. What Councillor Hobin and Lucia Ray and Hindle have done for Failsworth is prevented the people of Failsworth from having their say on this development. I can only think of one reason why a developer and a council planning officer would bring this to a council planning committee 10 days or so before it was due to go out to public consultation, is to bypass public consultation. Now, when we elected our independents across the board, one of the reasons many of you supported the independents was because you believed that they would fight to make sure you had your say on the decisions that affected you and your communities. Am I right? One of the reasons we supported the independents into positions of power, voted for them in our thousands, was because we believed that they would protect our right to have our say. We see Oldham Council's consultations, we see a lot of its paper exercises when they bother consulting us at all. And what we wanted was our councillors, our independent councillors, to make sure that at every opportunity they would protect our rights to be consulted, and when consulted, we'd be consulted in a genuine manner. Here, Hobin, Lucia Ray and Hindle have decided that the people of Failsworth do not matter. Their voices, their opinions do not matter. There's no getting away from that. You can think planning is a complex issue all you want. You can think about protecting the council's money all you want. All you had to do at that meeting, instead of pushing it through and promoting it and pushing it through, which is what Brian Hobin did, supported by Councillor Hince, and I'll get to him in a minute. All they had to do was raise their hand and say, excuse me, Oldham Council Planning Officer, the Woodhouses development is incorporated in the Places for Everyone portfolio of Andy Burnham's, and it is currently going through council process, and if successful it will go out to public consultation in under 2 weeks' time. Why is this development being approved independently and separately? Why are we bypassing statutory consultation? And on that basis, I cannot approve it. I cannot support this. Am I being in any way divisive, aggressive, unreasonable? Asking that the very councillors that Failsworth elected protect the rights of people of Failsworth to have their say? Do you think 2 weeks would have made any difference? Something else went on here. And I don't know where they got those strategies. They became suddenly expert strategists. Sometimes it is important to pick the battles that you can't win and save yourself for others you can. Do you really believe that the Labour Party councillors will support them on other things? Do you really believe those council officers will support them on other things because they've sold out Woodhouses? They're misleading you. They're deceiving you. And the problem you've got, which is why I'm increasingly disheartened in Failsworth East, is that many of you I know won't vote for Failsworth Independent Party again, and I get that. I don't blame you. But there is no opposition. Mark Wilkinson and his team haven't even got their act together in the West. Never mind put anything up in the East. And if they did put anything up in the East, the likelihood is that Lucia Ray's vote would be split with whoever the other independent is, and Labour would go in through the middle. And under current circumstances, I would not blame anyone for voting Labour in Failsworth East. Because what are Hobin, Hindle and Lucia Ray doing? They're as bad. And when you feel betrayal more from someone you trusted than someone you never trusted in the first place. I never believed Labour would do anything other than what they've done. But like all of you, I'd hoped that the independents in Failsworth would have stood up for the people of Failsworth, and they haven't. And not a word of opposition from Sandra Ball in Failsworth West. Not a word, not a comment. I knew Fryer would do what he would do. I knew Pete Davis would do what he would do. So let's move on to what Councillor Mark Hince has to say. An update. He goes on to his update. He's got 8 comments, 2 shares. Both I and my fellow community advocates, so that's what he now describes himself, of the Shaw and Crompton Independents, continue to provide help and assistance. As a community group, so he's still trying to claim he's a community group. Well, it's a group, so who are your members? Who are your members? Positive working relationship with stakeholders. Nothing about members. We will shortly be expanding our community group to give others the chance to contribute to our work. Does that mean, as a consequence of what we've exposed, they're now going to allow members? I think so. Apparently they've got a modernising strategy for the parish council and adopted town council status. Is that paragraph at the bottom? We have also adopted town council status. They can't adopt town council status the way they think they have. It'll get ripped apart. He's played fast and loose with the rules, and it's not going to be allowed to happen. And it's not going to be me who does it, by the way. I have no interest in stopping them. He's just not done it the way he should have done. Second to last paragraph. As a borough councillor and leader of the independent group, both I and my fellow independent councillors are working tirelessly on behalf of residents, giving them a real voice within OMBC Council Chamber. TIG are committed to pushing to hold the Labour Controlled Council and their allies to account. This is evident by the questions we ask and the motions we submit. Omission: the questions he asked and the motions he submitted were all produced by me. We are confident TIG will continue to grow and gain support with voters, as ultimately a collective voice within the chamber is something the council leadership cannot ignore. Here we get onto it. He's not smart. I have also been appointed onto the planning committee at OMBC, and for the record, despite what my detractors are suggesting, I am fully committed to opposing the destruction and development of our Greenbelt. In terms of the proposal in Failsworth, which has been highlighted by those seeking to discredit me for personal gain, where have I personally gained? I did vote in favour of a redevelopment of an existing farm site, which meant a small encroachment onto the Greenbelt. I did this for two reasons. Firstly, I consulted with the ward councillors, who unanimously supported the development. So the ward councillors included Labour Party councillors. In addition, there was not one public objection. So he's blaming you. He's blaming you. I supported it because no one else objected. Well, when you get that £10,000 a year or more, your job is to go and consult, you pillock. Raise people's awareness. He therefore took a pragmatic approach, as if this was not passed, the already largely developed site would not be utilised. He's talking bollocks. He's talking absolute bollocks. This is Councillor Mark Hince. He's talking absolute nonsense. You didn't object, so I saw no reason why to. The Labour Party councillors in Failsworth wanted it, so I supported them. Mark Hince sits on the very committee that Andy Burnham's Greater Manchester Spatial Framework Places for Everyone document was coming to, where Woodhouses was incorporated into it. Mark Hince knew, Councillor Mark Hince knew that the Woodhouses development was going to go to public consultation because he'd seen the minutes. He sits on the very committee. By voting it through, this man, with his fake party, this man denied the people of this town a say on the encroachment. He admits it, the encroachment of building on the Greenbelt. Furthermore, by him voting it through in Failsworth, he's now sold out Shaw and Royton. Remember, he keeps going on about how he's the leader of the independent group. He has not a leg to stand on now. Not a leg to stand on when objecting to the complete destruction and desecration of the Greenbelt in Shaw and Royton. And it's coming. Save Royton's Greenbelt have been very specific. And they've come out with a statement. as to what Andy Burnham's plans means for their communities. These people, Hince has sold you out. And why has he sold you out? Pragmatic view. The pragmatic view was to stop you from having your say when this went to statutory consultation. The pragmatic view was, you didn't complain about it, so why should I? That's not me saying it, that's what he said. You didn't complain about it, so why should I bother? He's claiming, and for those who watched the meeting, it demonstrates his commitment to proper scrutiny. You absolute donkey. You're a donkey, aren't you? Proper scrutiny, mate, was allowing the people of the town of the borough to have their say on the development as per the statutory consultation of the committee that you sit on. Pillock. Absolute pillock. These are your independents. They've sold you out, and the reason they've sold you out, they've suddenly got the money. They've suddenly got the power. Councillor. They've got a council email and a laptop. And they're selling you out. For power. They've just used every one of you as a stepping stone. I put up a quote by Plato. It's a Plato quote from the Republic at the beginning. They were all for opposing them when they had no power. But now that they have power, they've joined them. Indeed, Gary. They've had a taste of the samosas. They've nibbled on the pakoras. They've scoffed the sausage rolls. And now, we know better. It's complicated, this planning lark. Ooh, best pick our fights. But whatever Hobin came up with, this muppet has come out with worse. I didn't object because you didn't object. Maybe because the public weren't made aware. Indeed, Julie. Oh, I get that, Tony. I get that. They've gone further than using me, Tony. What they've done is after using me, they thought they could bribe me. He used to give me £50 a month. I'm sure he thought he could bribe me. I've got a good thing, he said. Do you not think the Labour Party, those affiliated with the Labour Party, have offered me more than £50 a month? I'll do what's right, no matter what. But worse than using me, Tony, and worse than using you, what they then tried to go and do is defund me and deplatform me and have me removed. What do you think is going to happen to this muppet in Shaw now? You've all seen Lisa Nafesy at meetings. Has any of you ever seen her utter a word? Share some policy updates? Some insights? Who's their candidate? I picked on Lisa. I mean, who's their candidate? These are just tin pot dictators. Particularly when that criticism manifests itself into personal and hateful insults, often from those with political and personal agendas. Who wrote that for you? Someone in the Labour Party, mate? Someone in the Labour Party might as well have written that for you. This is something both I and my colleagues will no longer accept, and we will not engage, I should say, or interact on any level with such individuals. Mate, You posted calling me a liar. You and your mates posted claiming that I'm divisive. I'm not the one that's changed. You and your mates have changed, Hince. And the reason you and your mates have changed is because you've now got a taste of the samosas. So they had a meeting with you the week before Failsworth Independence and didn't mention it. The Greenbelt is going to be destroyed across this town now with Andy Burnham's, and these lot are partners in it. Hobin, Hindle, Ray, Hince, Ball and Hurley. Partners in it. If you're finding value in these transmissions, remember these people have hurt me by £250 a month, and as it stands, they are going to win because my income at some point very soon will be below my expenditure, and like everyone else, I won't be able to carry on, and I will have to stop completely and go and get a job somewhere else. So if you find value in these transmissions, please consider taking a subscription. Buy me a coffee subscription. Not necessarily the YouTube one. Remember, the YouTube money I don't take. There's a Go site. I put it up on every one of my posts with a link to it. I think you can sign up for £3 a month. No one else is going to provide you with this analysis. No one else is going to do the work I do for you. The 100 or so of you that have continued to have stayed with me, I'm extremely grateful to. I wouldn't have got this far without your support. But these people, are beyond shameless. They are worse than Labour. I mean, this man was a Labour Party member. Maggie Hurley, go and type her name in Google, you'll see for ages has been hanging around trying to become relevant in the way Debbie Barrett Cole was. Brian Hobin, go and have a look. Now, many of you are saying to me, what's the answer to this, Raja? And I'm saying we control what we can control, and what we can control right now, because a lot will happen between now and next May, is continue to share information, provide analysis, and expose these people for what they are. That's what we can continue to do. I read the teachings of the Stoics, and it's one of the rules, one of the first rules. Control what you can. And what I can control is continue to provide an analysis and continue to be a beacon and share. And hopefully a new wave of people will come forward. I think the Royton independence and the Shaw and Crompton independence is very straightforward. The people in Royton and the people in Crompton and Shaw need to go and join these parties. And if they refuse, we need to expose them, and they'll be took out by the Electoral Commission. And it is that, Julie. Sorry, I need to think about myself somewhere in this. It is that. Right, I'll put some music on. What time is it? 10:40. I'll put some music on. I've got a little bit more to get through this evening. Yeah, some interesting stuff to get through this evening. There's quite a few of you still, in fact, most of you still here. So I'll go and get a chocolate. Anne and Louise both sent me these big boxes of chocolates. So I'll go and get some chocolates. I'll come back. I'll put the song. It's a very apt song, isn't it? I think. I'll put the song on and I'll come back in a minute. But please, if you're finding value, like, share, go away, look on my Facebook pages. Please follow those pages, the Recusant 9 and the Rajamir for MP. If you can, buy me a coffee. And if you can, subscribe to the Ghost site. £3, £5 a month. Every time I see a £3 or £5, I know, it's massive. What they've done to me is massive.
Too often, I'll say their face lies. I'll say their face lies. I'll say their face lies. Again, their face lies. Too often, I'll say their face lies. I'll say their face lies. I'll say their face lies. Again.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you want where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you feel we would ever want to defend, yeah? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal road, their face lies.
Their face lies. Their face lies.
Hey Sean, you got a party, got that little party going on there. Keep to the left, you can't think right, so everything you do goes wrong, yeah. Incompetence just leads to disaster. Corruption brings it on even faster. What you say?
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you want where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we'd ever want to defend, yeah? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal road, their face. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you want where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we'd ever want to defend, yeah? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal road, their face lies.
Their face lies. Their face lies.
Comrades, you always told us you'd build us all a new Jerusalem, yeah. You talk the talk, but when you walk, you only leave a crooked line there. And you don't see the trouble that's brewing if all you do is just what you're doing.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you want where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we'd ever want to defend, yeah? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal road, their face lies.
Is this where you wanna be? Debt and childhood poverty. Want somebody set us free from this corrupt kleptocracy. Oh yeah.
Their face lies.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you want where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we'd ever want to defend, yeah? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal road, their face. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Do you want where it's all gonna end, yeah? Do you think we'd ever want to defend, yeah? Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal road, their face. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your
thank you very, very much to the 4 people who've bought me samosas this evening. There's 240 of you on here, so I'm grateful to the 4 of you, and it's the same, it's a familiar name, so thank you very, very much. There is news coming out of Alexandra Ward that I think is significant and I need to bring you up to date with. Now remember, for a long time I looked at Alexandra and Chadderton Central as 2 specific wards where they have significant white communities, but over a period of time the Labour Party councillors went from 1 to 2 to, you know, the balance has been 2 Asian councillors and 1 symbolic white councillor there. Symbolic's the wrong term actually, you know, 1 white councillor there. So in Chadderton Central what we had was Nazrul Islam. And Chadderton, historically Central, even Central, is a predominantly white, significantly white ward demographically. But the makeup of the Labour Party councillors there, Nazrul Islam, Mohan Ali and Elaine Taylor. It was Barbara Brownridge. She's moved on to safer, what she thinks is safer, a safer area of Chadderton North for a white councillor, but Elaine Taylor's the one left there. And in Alexander, you have Dr. Chauhan and Shahid Mushtaq, the now deputy. And also, and this was historically Huey MacDonald's ward, remember, you have Jenny Harrison, Councillor Jenny Harrison, the former mayor. Now, if you look at Alexander, again, and I've worked in what is now Alexander Ward. It's an area I'm familiar with. I spent a long time of my life working on Halt's Village. Predominantly white, almost exclusively white. Alts extensively white and all of that. So the Pakistani areas are further up Park Road. And historically it was like, you know, there's a white councillor who look after the white area of Alts and Holt, and the Pakistani councillors will have elsewhere. And it is important. Representation is important. Those of you, the case for affirmative action was always that you need to have people who look likely, who understand you, for you to progress as a person. And it was usually the other way around. So affirmative action was for black people, because black people were underrepresented. And now what I'm saying, in these white working class areas such as Chadderton Central and Alexander, the representation of white people is more rare. Now Sheila Brophy, for instance, stood in Alexander Ward recently for Oldham Heart. And my issue is that it should be protected. That representation should. It's not healthy, is what I'm saying. If all 3 of your elected representatives are, for instance, white in a significantly Asian community, or with a community where there's a significant Asian demographic, then people who question that have legitimacy, in my opinion. Whether you agree with it or not, I think it's a legitimate position to have. But what we've now got is a complete reversal. So in Alexandra, where Jenny Harrison was the only Labour Party councillor, white Labour Party councillor there, to 2 Pakistanis, Councillor Jenny Harrison is not standing for election next year. Now I can't work out whether she's resigned or been deselected and pushed out. What I can tell you is that her replacement is a Pakistani. So Alexander will be represented by 3 Pakistani. The likelihood is Alexander will be represented by 3 Pakistani Labour Party councillors, where there's significant pockets of white working class communities. I don't think that's healthy. And I think it's another, if another ward goes entirely ethnic minority representation in a town like ours, I don't think that's healthy at all. I think it's coming. Elaine Taylor, it's coming for you in Chadderton Central. But Alexandra has gone, or will be going, full Pakistani. It doesn't matter if I use the word Bangladeshi, Somalian, makes no difference. Use whichever demographic you want. I just don't think it's healthy. So that's the news coming out of Alexander Ward. Councillor Jenny Harrison's days are numbered. I don't particularly think she was a very good councillor. But that's not the point. If the Labour Party had any sense, and they've done this in other wards, where they've imposed candidates themselves. They imposed Arood Shah in St Mary's, remember? They should have looked at that community and thought, we need to ensure that we support the white working class communities of Alt and Alts. Who knows? Maybe there are no more white candidates to be found. It could be worse. Sorry, I'm reflecting. It could be worse. You could have a Josh Charters, or what's he, she, they called councillor, the Delft parish councillor. I think it could be worse. I think she's just a terrible person, Denise. I had dealings with her when she worked at primary school, Alt Primary School. I just think she's a terrible person. This was me out this week. I don't really see photographs of me, so I'm not. Gary took a photograph. We're out in Royton, and that's me with my a postman bag that I picked up from a car boot sale with our leaflets in it. And we were out, and we've delivered thousands of leaflets. We've got a small team. And I'd prefer the team to be bigger, but we can only work with what we can work with. I'll be out again this week. I'll put something up on the Telegram page. And if you're around, I think there's another 20 zones or so left in Royton to deliver to each zone. It takes about an hour and a half. I'd prefer it if people help me with the 20 zones. I know many of you have. I saw Lynn popped round mine yesterday to pick up a box of leaflets. She was off to Limeside in Garden Suburbs, I think. David Kidman, who's here, has been helping out, brought his son along. Dean Ludford, been helping. Grateful to my friends from Failsworth to help. Warren Bates came out. Gary's been delivering stuff. Tony Martin. Julie Hayward. And Peter Brown, even Peter Brown came out and did a stint. Warren Bates, 85 in a few weeks, I think he means, knackered. I was going out for a walk on Friday, and I got up and I thought, I don't need to go out for a walk. I've walked that much already. So I didn't go out for a walk on Friday. Well, that's me, out in Royton. Feedback's been really, really good. People have stopped me to talk to me on the streets. For someone who these independents are keen to say, people don't know who he is. Well, fine, but people are stopping me on the streets, talking to me. Yeah, one or two challenging conversations, but that's fine. It's a free country. You don't have to like me. But overwhelmingly, a lot of support by people. All consistently the same. The message is saying, Raja, until you came along, we didn't have anyone fighting for us. And you've taught us all of these things, such as tactical voting, all of that. Just stopped to say hello, Gary. It was the same in Chadderton South. When I went out in Chadderton South, Gary, people were waiting to speak to me. I'm not like these people. I'm not like the Labour lot or these other people. You see, I'll knock on doors, I'll post leaflets, and I'll smile and I'll talk to anyone. And talking to my own townsfolk, why, I enjoy it. Talking to my own townsfolk. None of these people have guns in their hands today. The worst they can do is say, Roger, I'm a Labour Party guy and I hate you. This was Jack Butterworth who got very angry. Just had a leaflet from some joker called Roger Me. He can't even spell my name right. Claims to live in Oldham. I don't claim to live in Oldham. I claim Oldham is my hometown. Everyone knows where I live currently. Lives in Mosley. Have I hidden that from any of you? He claiming the email bounced back. The email didn't bounce back, and the website is non-existent. Again, that's not true. But he messaged me, and I politely replied to him. I can find no record of his MBE. I can find no record of his MBE. Don't for 1 minute think this is accidental. This is what the Labour Party lot do excel at. I can find no record of his MBE. This is the web page that Jack Butterworth claims doesn't exist. And that is a picture of the Queen putting on my medal on my chest. And no, I'm not joking what this man is claiming. So I might be a joker to you, Jack. But to the vast majority of the people of my town, and it puts a smile on my face, I am a blessing. And I'm happy to be able to serve them. This is Mandy Cooling. She is the compliance director at Brown Jacobson law firm. Remember, they were refusing to give me a named contact, so she's got in touch, and this is the first named contact I've got. And she's the firm's risk and compliance director. I confirmed that we are instructed by Oldham Council to obtain a protection from harassment order to restrain you from harassing the council staff. Clearly, I've never harassed the council staff, but that is by the by. As you are not a client of our firm, we are not required to provide you with personal contact details of our employees. Mandy thinks he's smart because I have never asked for the personal contact details of their employees. Why would I ever ask for the personal contact details of their employees? I asked for a named contact at the law firm so that I could contact with them directly. I didn't want ripped underpants at hotmail.com. I wanted a named contact at the actual law firm. So she's lying. Already thinking she's smart. As you're not a client of our firm, we are not required to provide you with the personal contact details of our employees. However, we can confirm that the partner in our firm responsible for supervising this matter is Matthew Alderton. And then she gives me this bizarre email that I'm not going to engage in, which goes to an unnamed webpage. Now, the reason I want to go to an unnamed webpage, or OBC claims even, is because the leader of Oldham Council, Cllrs Shaw, has endorsed my murder. There's no ambiguities. Posting love hearts and telling a man, isn't he sweet, who offered to make sure that I would never vote again. How would you stop me from ever voting again? There's only one way in a democracy. Universal suffrage, there's only one way you stop someone from never voting again, is by killing them. Arud Shah's associates have followed me to my house and been convicted for it. They've posted pictures of my mother and described her, gone into graphic detail describing her as a prostitute. And there is not a chance in hell they've gone looking for CCTV footage of me in places I socialise. There's not a chance in hell I am engaging with an unnamed email address. And I'll bring that up in any court. So Mandy can get stuffed. And as well as Mandy getting stuffed, you need to look at this man, Matthew Alderton. Type his name in and you'll see what I'm up against. He is some renowned lawyer who's involved in public inquiries and all sorts of stuff. I get the impression he's Australian. I don't care. We've seen off Johnny Depp's lawyers. And if need be, we'll see this off. Because our democracy is at stake here. These people are attempting to interfere in free and fair elections. They're attempting to stop me from campaigning for a public inquiry into the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of our town's children, and objecting to the criminal associations of those that lead this town. It is exactly out of a page of US politics, and it's been advanced with your money. And believe me, this Matthew Alderton isn't at £200 an hour or £300 an hour. Go and have a look at his resume. Your money is being used to attempt to censor and silence me and interfere in my campaign to run for my hometown MP. And yet again, not a single opposition councillor is saying anything. You've all seen that poem. First they came, and then they came, and then they came, and I did not speak out because it wasn't me. This is tyranny we are fighting. And if you sit there silently whilst they come after me, it will not end with me. I think so, Warren. They've mistaken me for someone else. Someone who can be intimidated. Arud Shah, Alexander Bogotov, Harry Caffrell, Paul Entwistle, Elizabeth Drogan, Emma Barton. None of you intimidate me. All of you together. And I'll still run rings round you. I want to bring something up and play something because some of you have asked me about it. It's to do with the Colosseum. There's an interview that Arud Shah was at on BBC Radio and she got exposed. Now it was shared with me and I was like, well, what are you going to do about it? And I'm kind. I try to be kind. So I thought, no, I'll speak out. Even though I have to, I'll speak out. So this is what the headline was, and you've seen this headline before. Oldham Council says Coliseum couldn't have been saved despite reports. So Councillor Shahid Mushtaq is on record for saying the building was riddled with asbestos. And other councillors and council officers have all come out and said, oh no, this building is past its life, can't be saved, and that's why we've come up with this other building. What they're trying to rewrite history here is that the space, the performance space behind the local interest centre, behind the old post office, was actually identified in the progress of being developed before the Coliseum shut down, and it was originally never seen presented as an alternative to the Coliseum. What it was a performance space, an exhibition space, an award ceremony type of space. Because remember, they're moving the council chambers into the old town, into the old library. So this would be an extension of that, like a mini Queen Elizabeth Hall sort of thing, once all of that is ripped apart. And then after the Coliseum was announced to be shut, they just decided that this was the alternative space. It never was, and the paper trail will show it never was. And the seating plan, the actual facilities, doesn't in any way come up as an adequate replacement. It's inferior in every way, and it costs £24 million. And it turns up that the Coliseum could have continued with just some fire doors. Less than £1 million. Let me play the interview.
Coliseum. It's been 6 months since it closed. But campaigners say that it could have been saved for £1 million. And they don't understand why it still can't be rescued. It's now being replaced with a brand new £24 million Coliseum, which is expected to open in 2026. Earlier, former Coronation Street actress Julie Hesman-Halsh tells me that no one seems to really want this new theatre.
When this building report came in, we were just told, yeah, it is fit for purpose. Yeah, there isn't anything, particularly wrong with it. The fire doors need replacing in the immediate. And after that, it would just be a matter of maintaining it over years. But we're not going to save it. The plans are in place. It's been earmarked for residential developments. The town investment plans have shown that. So basically, it's going to be knocked down and flats or houses are going to be built there.
Well, let's see if we can get some clarification on this. Councillor Cllrs Shaw is the Labour leader of Oldham Council. Good morning, Cllrs. May you just remind us why the Coliseum had to close in the first place?
So as far as my understanding is, even way before my time, there were always conversations for the Coliseum to actually move out of the Fairbottom site, which is why when in the interview earlier, Julie's referring to it being already earmarked for a residential, which is actually not true. That is not the case. It's not been earmarked for residential, but because the Coliseum had always indicated that they wanted to move out, there's just actually, quite frankly, no plans to build on the Fairbottom Street site. The document that Julie refers to is a map of a wide area of Oldham Town Centre, and it shows all potential vacant land. The Coliseum had been planning to move out of Fairbottom Street into a new building for a very long time, actually for over a decade, and that's why the site is on a map. But they were always planning to vacate the building.
So is it going to be demolished then?
Well, no, there were genuinely no plans for it right now at all. Right. I do understand people are heartbroken and feel sad about it, and I do too. But I'm open to conversations, but the Coliseum have never ever indicated that they want to maintain or remain in the Fairbottom Street site. They've actually been.
There's been campaigns to save. There's been campaigns to save it.
But that's the public who, well, a minority of the public that might have a view on it, but actually the Coliseum themselves have never indicated they want to stay on the fair bottom site. They've been involved heavily in the plans for the new modern theatre. But, you know, I'm an Alderman myself. I understand the strength of feeling behind it. I actually relate to the emotions Julie has, and we've had some fantastic people come out of the Coliseum Theatre. And, you know, I'm open to have any conversations, whether it be with the Coliseum or anybody else, to know that, you know, to have a discussion. But, you know, quite frankly, there's actually no plans to do anything with the fair bottom site.
Okay, so we've established that. I don't understand though why, if it would have taken £1 million to repair it, why is Oldham Council spending £24 million on a brand new theatre when they said they couldn't afford the repairs for the existing one?
So they never said they couldn't afford the repairs for the existing one.
Right. Well,
but
regardless of the reason, why is £24 million being spent on a brand new theatre when it would have taken £1 million to repair the existing one?
Because it doesn't actually take £1 million to repair the existing one. They're temporary works to make it usable for just a small amount of time. That's not the reason. But we always had plans to have an arts and cultural centre, and they were part of them plans. But the Coliseum asked for a new theatre. The new theatre is being built because this is what the Coliseum have asked us for. So that's you know.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, if they had asked for a new theatre, wouldn't they want the same capacity as it already had? Because we're hearing that the new plans have half the capacity of the current Oldham Coliseum Theatre, which doesn't make it a site where travelling productions can visit. You're losing revenue on ticket sales, particularly during Panto season, which makes a third of ticket revenues. And also, we don't have a change in places toilet.
So there's definitely toilets and plans for capacity. I do admit the new theatre isn't as big as the older one and won't have that kind of capacity.
Why not?
But it's been built. But I don't know. I wasn't involved in making the plans, but it has been built in consultation with the Oldham Coliseum Theatre. So these plans have been drawn up together. They are getting what they have asked for. And that's the reality of it. We work with them on the plans. It's a question for them, really. But I am genuinely open to further conversations around this. I was obviously re-elected as leader in May, and I understand the strength of feeling, and I know people feel really strong about it. So I'm happy to have discussions with the Coliseum if they want them, with Julie if they want them, or with people that feel really strongly about them. But I did have a conversation with some young people who are involved in the arts and creative industry, and they were saying they are really excited about the plans for the new theatre.
But they may not know the history of Oldham Coliseum, or what this, you know, if the money was invested in the existing site, they could get really excited about that.
Yeah, maybe so, but they are aware, you know, that Oldham is rich in history, and that's why we never just do things on our own. The actual decision to close the Coliseum came from the Coliseum. We were told 3 days before they officially made an announcement that they wanted to close. We had no influence or input in that. Okay. That was their decision, but they are, and you know, and this is something that I really do want to get across, that this has nothing to do with the council. But however, if, you know, Julie wants a conversation,
You will sit down and have that conversation. I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to stop the conversation there, Arush. Sorry, we're pretty late to the news. But thank you very much for your time. You're ready to have that conversation, and maybe we can follow up on that as well. The Labour leader of Oldham Council, Cllrs Shaw, it is just...
Okay. Arush! Amy, he's going to do it. He's going to do it again, Amy. Phone the police. The police will have to do something, can't they? Phone that policeman we know. Oh, he's not there anymore. Get him arrested. Amy, get him arrested, Amy. Shahid Mushtaq. Aruj. Are you okay, Aruj? Jim! You promised me you'll make him go away, Jim! I am not a councillor. But I will speak out on behalf of the people of my town. I don't get paid like HINCE HOBIN or Big Team Hurley. Yeah. That's my notes. I'll talk you through them. Because you can force her resignation off the back of this. Because she's gone on, radio. You can force her and a councillor should be standing up and asking for a resignation off the back of this. The Lib Dems should really be doing it. Because the Lib Dems have, are neck deep in the Coliseum. Because Sam Al-Hamdani was a member of the board. These are the statements I would challenge Arooj Shah on. 1. She's claiming that the site has not been earmarked for redevelopment. It just happens to exist on maps of potential redevelopment sites in Oldham Council that the council owned, but it's not been earmarked. So if it appears on their own maps and there's a monetary value and a value attached to how many houses and all the rest of it, if it's not earmarked, what is it? Apparently, the Coliseum was always planning to vacate the building. You go and have a look at the documentation. It shows when the last redevelopment failed, and Sean Fielding, when Arooj Shah was deputy leader, decided it wouldn't be a good use of money. One of the options they were meant to look at was a feasibility into staying in the existing site. Arooj Shah was deputy leader. Where is that feasibility document? So it wasn't always planning to vacate the building, because the last decision to do with the Coliseum was to do a feasibility of how it could stay in that building, because moving elsewhere was not financially possible. 3, she's claiming the Coliseum has never ever stated they want to stay. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. I think that's easily solved, isn't it? Now, this interview went out earlier on in the week. Why have those who run the Coliseum, including the likes of Sam Al-Hamdani, who was on the board, I don't know if he's still on the board now or not, why have they not simply come out and said, we want to stay in this building? I don't know. I don't know whether that's true or not. I can rip the first two apart, but that one I don't know, but I think it's easily proven. The Coliseum should come out and say it wants to stay in the building, shouldn't it? The people of the town want the Coliseum to stay in the building, so those who manage the Coliseum, theatre group. 4, Arooj Shah is claiming that the Coliseum, or those who are involved in the Coliseum, were involved heavily in the plans on the new £24 million site. And it is being built in consultation with them, and they are getting what they have asked for. Now, I don't believe any of that to be true, because I know, as a matter of fact, from the council's own documents, early documents, that the new £24 million site was being described initially as a performance space and not as a replacement for the Coliseum. So it's not been built in consultation with the Coliseum. And if they are getting what they asked for, did those who run the Coliseum genuinely really ask for a venue that wouldn't be financially self-sustaining and would not have the requirements that a performing theatre would have? I don't think so. Again, very easily, statement, we were not heavily involved in the plans. We want to stay. If the Coliseum, those who run the Coliseum, aren't playing with the public in this town, on points 3 and 4, they should have already issued a statement. They haven't. Arooj Shah claims Oldham Council never said they couldn't afford to do the repairs. No, Oldham Council are on record saying the building is riddled with asbestos. Her deputy leader is on record stating that the building is riddled with asbestos. Thereby, there's no ambiguity. To all extents and purposes, the Colosseum was described when I was reading the newspaper articles as though it was dangerous. The lives of people were at risk. It was riddled with asbestos. I wouldn't want my daughter going there for the pantomime. She then claims that the repairs are temporary works to make it usable for a temporary amount of time, a short period of time. The report I've read made reference to fire doors, is all that was needed. So fire doors are not temporary works, nor would it then be usable for just a temporary period of time. Arud Shah was claiming that the repairs, as outlined in that report, are just temporary repairs. I'd question her honesty on that, or perhaps she was misinformed. She claims that the new theatre is being built because this is what they have asked for. I've yet to see any document anywhere that says this is what they have asked for. So I challenge Arud Shah to quantify that statement. She claims the Colosseum decided to close the Colosseum. No. It was to do with the funding, the state of the building, the state of the management committee that was appointed by the council, and of course the council's failure to fill the gap. Remember, Arud Shah gave £1 million, not Arud Shah, Oldham Council gave £1 million to Frank Rothwell for his football pitch. That £1 million would have kept the Colosseum going. You can't go to planning next week or the week after, Denise, and this is where you lot are being played by these people. The Colosseum should just issue a statement. Colosseum should just issue a statement. The chief executive of the Colosseum, in partnership with the Friends of the Colosseum, should issue a statement. It's not complicated. Having had sight of the report, our preference is to remain on the Fairbottom Street site, which has history and heritage and means so much to the people of this town. Furthermore, we would like to clarify we have not been involved heavily in the plans for the alternative provision at £24 million. This provision does not meet our needs. And it is not what we've asked for. Our preference is to remain at the Fairbottom Street site. Oh, I'm being divisive. By being very, very clear, I'm being divisive. Which is why I think this is a game. There's other things going on here. Because if I was involved in Save the Colosseum, or on the Colosseum board, immediately after Arud Shah's, and that was at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock on Wednesday, I think, a press release would have already gone out. But it hasn't. Arud Shah is staying. The Colosseum never ever stated they wanted to stay. Arud Shah is stating that the new performance space has been built in consultation with the Colosseum, and they are getting what they asked for. the board of the Coliseum can solve this exposure like this. So why haven't they? Separate to that, there are a number of statements here that Arooj Shah has made where I think it needs to be fact-checked, doesn't it? Maybe I should create a Recusant fact-check service. You know, like a fact-check thing, you know, like the BBC have done. Maybe I should come up with a fact-check. Can we fact-check if the existing site has been earmarked for redevelopment? I believe it has. Can we fact-check that the Coliseum has always planned to vacate the building? I can fact-check to show that that isn't the case. Can we fact-check that OMBC never said they couldn't afford the repairs? I can fact-check to show that is not true because they've claimed it was riddled with asbestos. Can we fact-check to show that the repairs are just temporary works to make it usable for the short term? I think a fact-check will show that not to be accurate as well. And her last statement was that it has nothing to do with Oldham Council. Can we fact-check that as well? This is easily solved, but you have to be confrontational. Maybe that's my problem. I lack the... how did Brian Hoban explain it? You pick which fight you can win, rather than picking every fight that's right to fight for. Or maybe it's too complex for me, and the subtleties and the nuances are missed on me. Because if I was a member of the Coliseum board, I would be calling an emergency meeting following Arooj Shah's interview and issuing a press statement, and that would back the council into a corner. This has got nothing to do with planning permission, Denise. Absolutely nothing to do with planning. This is a simple statement. We were alarmed to hear Arooj Shah's interview and would like to make our position clear. We want to stay. Furthermore, we were never heavily involved in the plans for the new site. And what is being built is not what we asked for. Having seen the report, details of the report, and the very modest investment required, our preference is to stay at the site, and we ask the council to give us a grant to make the Coliseum continue operating from the historic site. It's not complicated. But as I've said from the beginning with this, there's something else going on. I genuinely believe there's something else going on, and all of you are being played and used. But I was asked, in fact, it was Jane Barker who sent me the link. Though someone who's just asked that, Denise, it was Jane Barker who sent me the link. And I have nothing against Jane. I think she's very, very good at what she does. Didn't Maggie Hurley go to all of these Coliseum meetings in the lead up? Was her statement. Why is the councillor who got elected or support as a consequence of taking a position in the Coliseum submitting FOI requests? Why has she not challenged Arooj Shah? Instead of taking another photograph of cutting some hedges somewhere. In the end, 5 years on, I understand more and more what I bring, despite not having a big team. What's he sent? Ask John. I have no doubt Jane's working hard to fight it. I have no doubt about that, Denise. But Jane isn't on the board of the Coliseum, is she? The board of the Coliseum can issue a simple statement. And I'm questioning, why haven't they? I hope you enjoyed this evening's transmission. It's 11:30. I've had more than 2 hours. There's 273 of you. I'll be out again on Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday is my plan. Delivering leaflets. If you're free, drop me a message. And if you're taking value from this work, if you are genuinely taking value from this work, please like, please share, please subscribe to the Facebook pages. That's all free. But if you can, you need to subscribe. Take out a paid subscription via the Ghost channel, and you've seen the links. Otherwise, we're gonna come up short, and you will have the representation of Hince, Hobin, Hurley and Ball.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011 he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.